The views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views
4 fish sticks left.
Hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis.
And good evening, everybody. Good morning. It doesn't matter where you are. It is definitely one time. It is time for After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Michael O'Neill. We've had another great week. Been busy, doing all sorts of cool stuff. Never ends. We got a lot of new projects in the works I think you guys will be all excited about. I know I am.
Yeah.
And hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to unveil that. And again, like every week, we have more of your listener emails, which that first hour is always dedicated to you guys. This week is especially cool because we have a lot of great questions on top of some great stories.
We do.
But sitting next
I'm excited.
to me, I guess, theoretically, from about 300 miles away is Mr. Michael O'Neill. And he is excited for our guest tonight. We're going to be talking with Lynn Monet tonight. And she wrote the book called Omnipresent. And this is a tale that curled my hair if I had it the first time I heard about it. It's a haunted house tale, but it is not your average run-of-the-mill haunted house tale. This one is going to be real eye-opening for everybody that's listening and a little jaw-dropping. But if
They'll
you
enjoy it,
if you go to omnipresent.com in the meantime, you can check that out and check her out. Again, that's omnipresent.com, omnipresent.com, and you can find out who Lynn is before we even talk to her. So that being said, Michael, how are you doing?
I'm doing phenomenal.
Good.
I had jumbo fish sticks for dinner, so I'm all hyped up on minced fish.
That's the
and
good
bread.
stuff. That's the good stuff.
It is the good stuff.
Right there. Nothing wrong with fish sticks.
That is the life
They're
I lead.
treating you right. You're loving it.
That's right. This is how the other half live, Joel.
Well, no, I've seen how the other half lives, and they are not eating fish sticks. Not by choice.
Why don't you like fun, Joel?
I do like fun. I do.
Sure.
I really do enjoy a good
I was trying to do a
time.
fun joke, and you just kind of messed that up.
Well, I know, but I don't joke about fish sticks. Never.
There are certain things a man does not joke about.
And fish sticks.
And
I
fish sticks is
I
one.
hate fish sticks.
What?
I hate them. Not a fan. Not a fan.
Well, you
We
just
live-
lost like a million. You just lost like a million listeners.
No, I gained a million. Because now they're all in solidarity with me, like, screw you, Mrs. Paul. I can hear
No.
it right now.
No.
And I'm only saying what's on everybody's minds.
No, not about this.
Fish sticks are horrible.
You are on the side of the flat earthers on this one.
No, don't even get me started on that subject matter. We have gone down that ranting rabbit hole before.
Yes.
And I will not be revisiting that ranting rabbit hole.
That's fine. I was just making a comparison out to how few and how absurd your statement was. That's all.
So anyhow, getting back to what's going on here.
Right.
The show. I'm really looking forward to having Lynn on. I think it's the best haunted house tale that I have heard in a long time, or the scariest. And what's more, it's true. You know, this book is not a fiction book. This is something that she lived through.
Yeah, I you sent me the book the other day. You know, so I've only had it for a couple days, and I'm like 2/3 done with it already. And it makes me, as an investigator, like I'm reading this, and I'm reading, you know, her descriptions, and I'm reading her accounts, and I'm like, I want to investigate that. I'm like, I could do a really good job there. Like, I really want to get in. Like, I really wanted to go there. to try and help her out. Like I wish she lived.
Well, hold on there, Skippy. Let's not get too excited here. We gotta save it for next hour.
Okay, all right.
We gotta save it for next hour.
Okay,
we can't unveil it.
But
we can't. As much as I want to, we can't.
Let me just reiterate that it really got me excited and happy to be an investigator.
Well, there you go. Everyone's happy and excited that you're an investigator now. we're all a little bit better for it now, aren't we?
Well, not everybody, but a lot of people.
Most people. They're very excited. Okay, we gotta move on. We got stories now. Just a quick note. In my last treatment, I've been dealing with an eye issue, as everyone knows, for the last few months. And evidently it is healing itself, which I was not expected to do, and neither was my doctor. So we are very excited and very happy about that. So this will be the last time, I do believe, because I've been battling through it and still reading. Sometimes not the greatest, but still doing my part. But this time I have to yield to Mike because I got some blurry vision going on that right eye, and it makes it very hard to read, or at least be understanded when I read. I
got
read.
You back, Joel.
I could try, but it may not be what you want to hear. So without any further ado, Michael O'Neill will be reading your stories tonight, your haunted tales, and your haunted questions that we will do our best to answer.
Yep. Deep Thoughts with Michael O'Neill.
Yes.
That's what we're going for.
Just don't jump in too hard, folks. You're going to crack your skull. So shallow there.
What?
So shallow.
Anyways, let me stretch here. It's gonna be good. All right, first one comes from Ben. He writes in, I got a few questions for you, so here we go. Number 1, is there any meaning when a ghost shows themselves in a picture you took? Question number 2, can you be allergic to holy water? Because right after I put some on me, my body started getting super itchy all around, and I was getting little bumps and blotches on my face. So I'd like to know if you can be allergic, or if I'm possessed, or if it's somehow fake. And question number 3, is it possible for a ghost to latch onto you once they've shown themselves to you? Like if I was in the picture and they were behind me.
You mean like an attachment?
I think so, yeah.
Well,
latch on. I mean, yeah, attachment. I mean, it basically he's asking if there's a spirit behind him in a photo, does that mean that the spirit is attached to him?
Well, you know, as far as the picture goes, the ghost showing itself in a photo, what does it mean? It could mean that it wanted to show itself to you. And it depends on, there's a lot of circumstance, a lot of theories and thoughts behind that, because that's spirit photography. That is so often hit and miss. That is one of the most maligned things in the paranormal because of the pareidolia factor and because of the way our brains are wired. It is one of the hardest things to look at and be objective about. So, if you have the legitimate article that this ghost is showing itself to you in this picture that you took, I would count myself as extremely lucky because that does not happen. Does it mean anything? Well, what does it mean to you? Ask yourself that question. What does that mean to me that it did this for me and with me?
Yeah, I mean, I would also ask and see, were you just taking random photos and you happened to catch a spirit, or did you ask for it?
Yeah, what's the backstory? What's the circumstances? And was it a cooperation thing? You know, were you asking for a manifestation? So those are all questions. I think, like I said, I still stand by it. I think it's all what you think it means. Because that was a relationship between you and that entity at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, either that or it is, in fact, coincidence. You just happen to, have a type of camera that was able to catch a spirit right as it was in front of you.
Yeah, and I saw some, I'm not going to say where or who or how, but over the weekend I saw some fantastic photographic evidence.
Yes.
But
again,
Yeah.
he asked for it.
Yes.
He was asking for the photo,
Yeah,
too.
he was asking, and he got a response. Might not be the response he wanted, but was the response he needed.
Yes.
So it was a very interesting photograph that I could not debunk. Normally, I could look at a picture and go, yep, debunk, right away. This one, not so fast. There were some circumstances involved that made this one the legitimate, in my opinion, the legitimate ghost capture.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Barring any further review or putting it through its paces, I would say at first glance, this particular piece of photograph is real. And you'll know that as an investigator, you'll be able to tell the difference between someone's pareidolia and a real ghost. I mean, it's just that obvious when it's real. So,
yes.
All right, and what's the numbers? Next one is the holy water thing. Can you be allergic to holy water? I don't. Are you allergic to your shower?
Yeah, holy water is just water that's been blessed.
That is all it is. Little bumps and blotches on my face, he says. Well, Ben, I'm not sure if you have some type of water allergy. Maybe there's something in the water that was sourced from that's not agreeing with you. But by and large, I don't know of anybody that's been sprinkled with holy water and has turned around and said, oh, my God, I'm allergic. Now, remember, holy water is not just used for exorcisms. It's used for all sorts of things. It's used for baptisms, for instance.
Yep.
There's a lot of different uses. Would all those people be allergic to holy water? No. I don't believe that you are also possessed, but that's a whole different deal.
That's a whole different deal. I would like to point out one thing, and I haven't seen it for a while, but I did see a study on it, and I'm not saying that this happened in your case. It might have. I just don't know. But they have done studies of like the thing where when you walk into the church and you dip your hand in the water and then you do the cross.
Yeah.
Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
They have done studies of those, and a lot of them they've actually found like fecal matter.
Well, sure, everyone's dipping their hands in there.
All right. So I mean, I don't think it was the fact that it was holy water as to why your body reacted in such a way. As Joel said, it might have been something in the holy water or in the water.
Yeah.
Not
the fact it's holy, because
right.
You can make any water, or a priest can make any water holy. Yeah. I was talking to a priest one time and I said, hey, how do you get your holy water? He says, the faucet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all it is? Yeah, we just bless the water because that's what makes it holy water. It becomes blessed. It's still tap water, but now it's taking on the meaning of holy.
Yeah, they don't have like some special fountain or stream that they go, at the top of the mountain, and this is the holy water.
Yeah, holy springs. Get your water.
The top of Mount Kilimanjaro is the only place where they can grab it. They just take it out of the hose. They take it out of a bucket. They can do whatever they want, and you make it holy water.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I would definitely look at the fact that there was probably something in the water itself that made you react in such a way.
And Ben, I don't know how you go from that to, or am I possessed in the next breath? I don't believe, unless there's something you're not telling me that you're possessed. I mean, barring anything that's going on, I'm reading it just for the email here. Why would you believe that you're possessed? All because you get some lumps on your skin from some water? That's ridiculous. So don't worry about that.
Absolutely. I think he might have made that as like a sarcastic joke. Well, if it's not holy water, well, then I must be possessed.
Yeah, somehow fake. And I think it was a joke at the end. Now I'm seeing the LMFAOO. Yeah. I'm not going to attempt to decipher that. And plus, it'd probably get me in trouble anyway.
Well, the F would, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Well, then question number 3. Is it possible for a ghost to latch on to you once they've shown themselves to you?
Well, it's possible.
Like if it was in a picture and they were behind you.
It's possible for them to latch themselves onto you even if you don't see them.
Yeah.
I mean, do you
100%.
think that everybody that has an attachment saw the ghost before it did it? No, absolutely not. I think that if there's a ghost in the picture with you or they've shown themselves to you, rather, that doesn't necessarily lend itself to attachment. I think what attachment does, or how you get an attachment, is not wearing your armor when you go into an investigation. I really believe that. You have to be sound. You have to be sound of mind. You have to have your armor up. You're not going to mess with me kind of armor, whatever that might be. It could be spiritual. It could be just the determination not to be bothered by anything. But you got to bring that mental armor out.
Yeah. You also have to not act like a jerk face.
That is true. And the number one way to get attachment is to, well, either make them really like you or make them really hate you.
Yeah.
You know, some of them just like your energy and they want to hang around for a little while. And others really don't like you and they want to make your life hell.
Yep. Pretty much. As for the whole picture thing, no. Just because a spirit shows up in a photo with you does not mean they're attached to you if you are in like an actual active location. I mean, if you go home from an investigation and take a photo there and there's a spirit, yeah, it might be attached to you.
It might be. It might be. There have been people that have taken pictures of their attachments by accident, mostly by accident. And I know other people that can flat out see an attachment on somebody. Like, wow, what is that thing following you around? But really, again, it's a lot of worry about a lot of things that if you take the proper precautions, you shouldn't have to worry about.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah. All right, next one comes from Shelley. She writes, last Friday I was home alone, and at around 11 p.m. I was listening to After Hours AM up in my room.
Thank you.
When I heard a knock at my door. I knew nobody was supposed to be over, so I just ignored it. They then started ringing my doorbell, so I got up and went to the front door. There is usually a light at my front door that's on, but it seemed to have burned out. But even in the dim light, I could see that it was two kids who looked no older than 8. I opened the first door, and I asked the kids what they were doing. It was a boy and a girl. The girl asked, "May we come in and use your phone? We got lost and can't find our way back home." I mean, it was 2 kids, so I think anyone would say yes, but something felt wrong. I couldn't figure out what it was, and I still don't know why I didn't let them in. The light at the front porch then flickered on for maybe a second or two, but when I looked at the kids, I could see their eyes. They were pitch black. I took a step back and slammed the door shut, locking it. They kept banging on the door for maybe 5 more minutes. It sounded like the door was going to fly off the hinges any second, and then it finally stopped. I didn't get any sleep that night, and I haven't really slept well since. So first, let me just say thank you for listening to After Hours AM.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Sucks that happened to you, but at least you listen to our show.
I mean, silver lining, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, as soon as I was reading this, earlier, as soon as I got to the 2 kids who look no older than 8, I'm like, oh, black-eyed kids.
Right.
I mean, because honestly, for everything, and I don't know a lot about black-eyed kids. I know that they're a new type of phenomenon that is slowly coming to light more and more. But this is like textbook. I mean, you could open up, talk to anybody who has even had or has talked to anybody who has had an experience with black-eyed kids, and almost every single one of them will say it's like it's 2 kids saying they're lost and may we use your phone. They're trying to gain access to your house.
But they seem to have to be invited in.
Yeah, like vampires.
They just can't make entry. There seems to be something to do with you inviting them in to your home for whatever reason that may be. I've heard use the bathroom, use the phone. We're scared, we're lonely. We're looking for an adult to help us. There's a lot of different ways that they seem to use things that they use, methods that they will try to use on adults and try to gain entry into a home, which is really scary onto its own. But your slamming door and things going on, Mike's right. You got some textbook black-eyed kid phenomena, although it is less common for them to actually try to break your door in.
Yeah,
that is very less common.
That's the first thing. I think that's the first story that I heard where they just continued banging.
Yeah, because there definitely seems to be has to be a consent involved. You have to become the willing participant in whatever they have planned.
Well, that's scary.
So, it's much like Mike had said, a vampire. Who knows? Black-eyed kids, man. I mean, they are a newer phenomena. Some people believe that they're alien hybrids. Others believe that they're demons straight from hell. But one thing's all in common. In this age of, and Shelley, I'm not saying you had this time or if you had the device on you, but in this age of smartphones, you would think that there'd be a little more photographic evidence.
I don't know. I mean, because if all they do is really just go and try to gain access to your house, I mean, you'd have to let them in your house first in order to have enough time to get your phone out. I mean, I guess if you were smart enough, and I don't know if anybody would be, or on their game, I should say, be like, hold on a second, kids, let me go grab something, and then go grab your phone, but not let them in. Right. I wonder if that would work, if they would still be there when you got back.
Good question. Because I have heard people that have actually let the black-eyed children in. I've talked to people or heard stories about it, because that's really what we hear, stories now, isn't it? We never hear from the horse's mouth. Well, I let them in, and this is what happened. But I've heard everything. Horrible things befall those that have let them in. Everything from people dying later on of a horrible disease to them morphing into demons straight from hell and killing them. I mean, it really runs the gamut of what happens after you open that door. But again, I have to retract my earlier statement about the smartphone, because if that's going on, Shelley, who the hell's going to think about that? You're hearing all that stuff going on.
If you can keep your head and realize what is going on, which I don't know who would.
No, I would be freaking out. I would have. I don't know what I'd do in that situation. How about you, Mike? What would you do?
I honestly don't know. I don't answer my door, period. So I mean, unless I literally know that somebody's coming over, I'm with her. I didn't think. I know nobody's coming over, so I ignored it. And that's typically what I do. I'll hear the knock, I'll hear a doorbell, and I'll just continue to do what I'm doing. Oops, missed ya.
Yeah, right.
But if it was the middle of the day and I actually saw the black eye, I don't think that I would freak out. I think I'd be like, hold on 1 second, and then I'd shut the door really quick and start screaming and yelling, oh, holy F.
Sure.
And then I go grab my phone.
Yeah.
And see if they're still there.
It wouldn't be so bad if you had someone there with you, but it sounds like Shelley was alone.
That's true. She was, yeah.
At least you have somebody else there with you to at least verify, this is actually going on and you're not going crazy.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
I think it's all in the way you would handle it. And plus, I mean, if you don't know anything about black-eyed kids, I mean, if you don't follow paranormal, you're not part of the paranormal community, you're going to let two little kids into your house.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Shelley there. I don't know who wouldn't let them in. I mean, there's two kids saying that they're lost.
Well, I guess my penchant for not liking people would kick in at that point.
That would do it, yeah.
And tell them, get the hell out of here, get off my lawn. I don't want anything to do you.
Alex would ask them to come in and play.
I know she would. And that would be the downfall of me, would be her opening the door. Because, they're probably going to target me, being the dad, being the authority figure, because it seems like they like to go after adults. Because you don't really hear a lot of times about black-eyed kids messing with little kids.
That's true.
I don't know why, but they just don't. They just don't mess with little kids. I don't know, black-eyed kids, it's a phenomena. And maybe in the near future, we will do a whole show on it. We'll see if Brian Bethel is around, and he's the guy that broke the story of black-eyed kids years ago. And we will see if we can get him back on the show to talk about the phenomena.
Has anybody even really done any actual type investigation or research into what these things are?
It's so spotty. I'm not sure that anyone really could. I mean,
that's true.
Really no video evidence.
No.
There seems to be next to no audio evidence. The only thing we're left with is eyewitness testimony.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can do sketches and we could talk with them and stuff like that, but there doesn't seem to be any tangible physical evidence when you get right down to it to support their existence.
Yeah. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. It's an interesting phenomenon, and I'm glad that we were able to actually get a personal account written in.
Yeah, I am too, and you're listening to our show and enjoying yourself. Next thing you know, doorbell rings and you got two ungodly children at your door. Let us in, Shelley. Let us in.
Shelley, I do have a question for you. If you're listening, if they would have said, "We heard After Hours AM on the radio coming out the window, and we want to listen," would you have let them in?
Would you have thrown a... I would think yes. I would assume that she would want them to come and listen and enjoy the goodness that is the show.
They just asked the wrong question. They had the wrong problem.
Right. And now if they would have mentioned, hey, we're big fans of the show too, can we come on in? By the way, how's your soul these days? Because I bet you it's tasty. And then that would have been the end of Shelley. We wouldn't have got this email. So actually, it would have ended bad. So anyhow, Shelley, you did the right thing. We're going to run to break. We come back. We got more of your stories. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back as soon as I cue up this darn break. Right back, right after this darn board. Here we go.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Michael O'Neill. When we left off, we're reading your submitted stories and questions to us. And the last one was a great one. Shelley got a hold of us talking about black-eyed children at her door. And if that doesn't scare you just a little bit, your pulse isn't pounding. Because I think I'd freak out if that were me anyway. Yeah. Now I think about it, little kids are scary anyway. You add black eyes to them? No thanks.
You should get, I'm sure that like Spencer's or something online would have like black contact lenses.
Oh, yeah.
Do you imagine going around Halloween with a black-eyed kid?
I think you could probably do it pretty good because social distancing this year. You know, there might not be that many trick-or-treaters out. You could really mess with people. You know, let us in. We know you have candy.
That would be sweet. I mean, it wouldn't. I'm not going to answer my door at all this year. But
Dan is our next writer, by the way.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, we're going to target you now, Dan.
Oh, Lordy. Dan writes in, I've been having the same nightmare for like 10 years. It's always an old man smiling at me that appears right in front of me at the side of my bed. It's always like I wake up and see him for maybe 10 seconds, then it's over. It doesn't happen that often, and it's been a pretty constant dream, not sure if it is a dream, in my life. Has this happened to anyone else? What could this mean? Am I just overanalyzing a dream?
Wow.
Well, do I think you're overanalyzing a dream? I don't think so. I mean, it's commonly known, or theorized, I guess I should say, since really nothing in the paranormal, I think, is fact yet. But it's always easier for the dead to communicate with the living when we are asleep and in our dreams and stuff like that. So, I mean, are you overanalyzing it? I don't think so. What does it mean? I honestly don't know. I mean, especially if you don't recognize the old man, it could just be a spirit that lives in your house that every once in a while is trying to communicate with you. The only thing that I don't see here is how it makes you feel.
Yeah. And a decade? That's a long relationship to be having with this old dude.
And he's just smiling at you.
And he's just smiling at you. Have you ever, in your dream, consciously, before you went to bed, said to yourself, I'm going to attempt communication with this person? And really put in your head, that way when you fall asleep and you start dreaming, maybe, just maybe, you will actually try that in your dream. Establish communication, and there must be a reason. Is there a message that you need to get that you have not been open to hearing yet? Because if you don't recognize the old man at all, and you don't understand what's going on, the best way is just to start with, why are you here?
Yeah. Or who are you?
You know, who are you? Nice to meet you. What's going on? Why have you been bothering me for the last decade? Kind of thing.
You know, yeah. I mean, the other question that I would ask you, especially if it's an old man that's smiling down at you, I mean, I would hope that's not like a creepy smile, like, you know, that type of smile.
Like Jeff the Killer kind of smile.
He could easily be like a great-grandfather or a grandfather, depending on how far up you've been able to meet your relatives. But I mean, he could definitely be a blood relative that is just, he's quote unquote your guardian angel. You know, he's looking out for you. And maybe he's just checking in. And when you sleep, he's kind of just saying, I'm still here.
Yeah. Now, does he say it happens every night, or is it, he doesn't really go to specifics?
No, he says it doesn't happen that often.
Okay, not that often, but it's
but it's a pretty constant dream in my life.
And see, Ted, how do you gauge time in your dream? Because he says 10 seconds. I know you're trying to gauge it in your dreams, but that'd be an awful hard thing to do. I guess I'd start with some communication, asking what's going on. I know the devil here, I'll be devil's advocate, they claim that all dreams are just hallucinations. And so you're hallucinating this, that could, those kinds of things. But I don't know, for a decade though, that's pretty reoccurring.
Yeah,
for a decade, that's something I would definitely. Or you could turn to someone that is a very skilled dream interpreter, that's also a medium, and they may be able to shed some light on what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, they may say, I'm sensing like a grandfather type figure or something. It might be your great grandfather.
Yeah, or it could be you in the future.
You haven't met.
I've heard it's so strange where they're meeting themselves.
Ooh, I would like to do that. I'd like to meet myself in the future. But the other thing is, crap, I lost my train of thought I lost it when you said about meeting myself, and I got all excited.
Only you would. No.
Anyways, but has it ever happened to anybody else? Yes. A lot of people have that type of thing. Oh, I remember my question now. I would like to know if this has all been in one location. Like, is it have you been in this house or this apartment or whatever for all 10 years?
Yeah, good question.
Have you moved and the dream has still followed? Mm-hmm. Because if it's followed you to different locations or different residences, then he's associated with you. And it's possible if it's all in the same place, this old man or whatever, if it's not associated with you by blood, he may be attached to the house and have something to do with the house. And he's just letting you know that he's there.
Could be. Very well could be. I got a feeling it's deeper than that, though.
I think so, too.
I think it's much deeper than that.
I think if you're going to show yourself always smiling at the side of the bed for 10 years, I think that Dan means more to the spirit than a simple "you're in my house" type thing.
There's a message going on here that you're not receiving, and just like I said, open the communication, or better yet, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, look for a skilled medium that's also learned in dream interpretation, because there might be some unweaving that has to be done with that dream to get to what's going on.
Yep, exactly. All righty. Next, we have Tammy, who writes in, so my question, is it possible to detach spirits from you or even close your pineal
gland?
Pineal, yeah. I'm assuming
gland, yeah.
Pineal gland. I've been dealing with a lot of negativity and problems for 5 years, and I would like it to go away. It's messing my social life, and it's starting to bother me in my studies, and it's very discouraging to live with around me daily. Guys, any advice?
Well, I would probably refer you to, if you feel that you have an attachment, because you mentioned detachment, and you believe that your pineal gland, which is thought to be responsible for mediumistic abilities, I would reach out to a medium that may be able to help you and figure out why this spirit is latched onto you. And it could very well be the case that you have latent abilities that you're not even aware of. And a lot of times that will happen because now you become this beacon, or maybe you always have been this beacon, and they want to talk to you. And it can be very difficult in the beginning to get a handle on that. So what I would recommend is I would go down all avenues here. I would definitely find out about the attachment if you have one. Number 2, find out about your own abilities, because you want to close your pineal gland, which is not the easiest thing to do. So that's something that you have to be very skilled to be able to do. And so you're kind of going to have to attack it at both fronts.
Yeah. My question is, the whole statement of I've been dealing with a lot of negativity and problems for 5 years. Like, I just want to know why you think that that's supernatural, paranormal in general.
Yeah, are you seeing something? Yeah, exactly, Mike. Just to elaborate on what Mike's saying. I mean, are you seeing something? Is there something going on? Go ahead, Mike.
No, yeah, because I have a buddy of mine who he's an investigator, and he's gone through a lot of really, really bad times. I mean, we're talking divorce, we're talking medical issue, all sorts of things, to the point where, like, he was almost homeless. And he thought, same as you. I mean, it didn't happen for 5 years, but I mean, it was just one thing after another. Nothing was going his way. And he too thought that maybe something was attached to him, that this was something that was doing this to him on purpose. And I actually talked to a medium friend of mine, and she asked for a photo, and I sent her a photo of him, and she kind of read it, and she's like, no, there's nothing attached to him. He's like, this is just a bout of bad luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, to be honest, I don't even think it's gone away yet, but I mean, it's not supernatural. There's no spirit attached to him that is making his life go bad. It's just kind of a little bout of bad karma. So, I mean, I guess I would really like to know what makes you think that the problems and the negativity that you have are supernatural in nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, get to that root and find out, because it could be just bad luck.
Yeah. I mean, and if it is supernatural, if you go and see a medium and she's like, I sense that there's a spirit attached to you, this is where he came from, blah, 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 then, yeah, obviously follow that, and you'll be able to I mean, the medium should be able to detach it if they're worth a damn.
Yeah, and it's not a bad idea to have a checkup on both fronts. Have that checkup done with a really good medium. Talk with them. Someone that you somewhat trust, and if you take it for what they say. Yeah. I mean, if you don't believe what they're saying, you don't have to. But the same token, it sounds like you're kind of at the end of your rope here.
Yeah.
So I would look into all avenues, and if they say, hey, it's just about a bad luck, you ride it out. It will be okay. It will be okay. Everything turns around. It really does. Sometimes it takes a while, but it does.
I can completely and 100% relate to that statement, because it's happened to me multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and a medium or psychic or anybody that knows about this type of thing might even be, if it's not an attachment, it is just about they can give you ways of turning that around quickly. Mm-hmm. Whether it's stones, whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga, they can give you avenues in which to go down that will change that around very quickly for you.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Next, we have Kelly. I'm almost sure that something follows me. No. I will not sleep in my room. I will not work in my room. And she works from home. And when I brought my mom over, I asked her to step into the room and tell me how it feels. She immediately said it felt heavy, which is what I had described the room, since my fiance and I stopped sleeping in there. My fiance is not as sensitive as I am. He regularly uses the room as a game room for video games. Sometimes I feel the urge to sleep in there, but if I'm in there, I feel like I'm being watched. Sometimes I wonder if I conjured this a long time ago in my dark depressing, dabbling in the dark themes, so to speak. Do you guys have any ideas?
Ooh.
I have a couple of ideas.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I mean, if you're dabbling in the dark themes, so to speak, that's never good. The only thing that I don't quite believe that it's part of that is because it seems to be limited to that one room. And typically, if something is attached to you, it's going to want to go with you.
Yeah, definitely. And here's the deal. We need to get rid of the mundane before we can jump to the supernatural. And a lot of people that have high EMF in a room will describe exactly what you're describing.
Indeed.
They have that sensitivity to it, and it might have even been inherited, and that's why your mom shares it.
No, absolutely.
You might want to look into that first. The things that we can control first, just to make sure. Hey, do I got really high EMF in here? Is something amiss with the wiring? Sometimes there's a really easy explanation. Something as easily fixed as an unshielded wire in the wall. I've seen work. It doesn't feel so bad in here. Now it's been insulated. Okay, I'm good to go. But on the other hand, if you've been dealing the dark arts, remember, light begets light and dark begets dark. So I wouldn't be dabbling into the dark arts. And remember, there's no time limit on this stuff. People seem to think that, hey, I can go summon demons, and even though it's 30 years ago, they're going to leave me alone. They have nothing but time. They got nothing but time. So you might deal with them when you're 15, and they'll show up when you're 45. And decide that this is the time to strike. So Kelly, just don't do it anymore. And if indeed you have opened up some type of portal, as it were, to the other side, and you got nasties running around, you're gonna have to deal with that.
She did say it was a long time ago, so I don't think she still does it. I hope she still does it.
Yeah, because she said she dabbled. I conjured this a long time ago. In my depressing time, I'm assuming. Yep. Dabble in the dark arts. Who knows? Just be careful. What doesn't hurt to have things checked out. But start with the home.
Yes, I agree. Because I was going to say, I had a case in southern Minnesota, and it was a private home. And during our walkthrough, I had a K2 and a millimeter with me, which both do EMF, and nothing was wrong. And then in one of the bedrooms where some of the activity had occurred, it got to one of the light switches, and it pegged it to red. And come to find out that whoever installed that light switch did kind of a really crappy job, and it was putting off a huge amount of EMF to the point where I'm like, you're going to want to get that fixed, because who knows if you flip on a light and it sparks.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden your home is gone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would definitely, if you know anyone that has any sort of EMF, they're really, really cheap. I'm sure if you contacted a paranormal team, they could send out somebody with a piece of equipment just to help you check that out.
Yeah.
And see what they feel and what they find for free. I mean, I definitely would do it, but I don't know where you live. But I would just, as Joel said, I would have that checked out. I wouldn't put it past a high EMF.
Yeah, then move on from there. Because if your boyfriend's not feeling anything, which not everyone feels spirits or anything, don't get me wrong, but he may not have the same sensitivity that you do. And you mentioned working in there, that would lend itself to a lot of power consumption in there, like with your computers and this and that. Mm-hmm. So there could be a fair bit of that field going on in there. Even computers will put it out. I know every radio station I ever worked at's been haunted. And it was always, I can always trace it right back to, in a lot of these radio stations got giant transformers for transmitting. Yeah. And EMF EMF meters actually shut off in those rooms because it's just so high. I have video cameras. I tried a video camera one of those rooms one time to get a replacement part for a transmitter we have, and the video camera would not stay on because it's such high EMF was making it shut off.
Yeah.
So, but that's why that was always haunted, because everyone would say, oh my God, by the room over there, it's haunted. So, yeah, long story short. Could be EMF. Okay, moving along. Yeah, I know.
All right, our last one of the day comes from Trisha. A close friend died, and I can't really believe it. I want to hold a seance and maybe talk to her to connect to her, but would that be disrespectful? She was cremated. Will that affect the seance? Any advice would be appreciated.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't have a seance.
That was my advice, dude. Like, just don't do it.
Just don't do it. Anytime you start dabbling in that crap, that stuff, doing seances, because you might want to connect with her, and boy, do you ever want to. But anytime you open that, anyone could step through.
Yeah.
And that's always the danger, isn't it? Is the unknown. Who's going to be stepping through that?
Yeah. I mean, let me just say first, obviously my, condolences for your loss. Losing a good friend, wow, it's never easy at all. And very, very, very hard to accept. I can't say that I blame you for wanting to connect with her. Is that going to be disrespectful? No, I don't think so, because you're a close friend. Now, if, some guy down the street knew about it and he went ahead and like, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and see if I can contact this chick for her. Yeah, it'd probably be a little disrespectful. And unfortunately, in the paranormal community, I know of one person especially who does that quite often and makes me want to strangle him. But cremated, I don't think so. I mean, it's her spirit. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you really, really, really just can't stand not being able to talk to her, I would find a reputable medium.
Yeah.
That is willing to do it for you. Don't do it yourself. Because as Joel said, I don't think anything good can come of it. And a whole lot of bad can come of it. If money's not an issue, I would add, chip coffee, something like that. Somebody who is experienced and has the reputation of being able to get you what you want.
But now, go ahead.
I was going to just finish with, but will tell you if that's not an option. Because Chip always just tells you, and any good medium that actually sells their services should tell you, I can only give you what I get. So if I don't get anything, I don't get anything. Mm-hmm. Because there are going to be a lot of mediums out there that will tell you what you want.
Anything you want to hear, they're going to tell you. But here's the thing, though, is we don't know where your friend is in her spiritual journey. She may not be ready to talk. She may not even have the ability to reach out yet.
Very true.
I mean, if I understand what people have said, there's a learning curve. The newly deceased, I mean, you got to let them kind of work through their own spiritual journey. And then maybe the best course of action is to wait a bit and see if she contacts you first. Because if you're very, very close, I'd look out for a dream visitation.
Very true. 100%.
And that would be 100% respectful. Because then you're doing it on her terms when she's ready. And you won't have any guilt about, chasing her down when this may be the wrong time in her spiritual journey to be chasing her down. It may hinder her in her movement into the next plane.
Absolutely true. So yeah. Exactly. I don't have any more stories.
Yeah, you're kind of out of stories, and that is okay. That there's nothing wrong with being out of stories at all. And we kind of blew through them quite quickly, and I want to thank everybody that did write in this week. And of course, just like you guys have always done, afterhours8@gmail.com is the place you can send your stories. We really appreciate it each and every week. We got a whole lot of things going on here with the radio show. We're going to be expanding. We got that going on. We also have a couple of events in the hopper that are coming forth with, and I think that'd be a good time. Now we got a few minutes left for Michael to tell us all about both events he has going on.
Yeah, Para-Unity, baby. That's what I like. I just love the term, Para-Unity. So obviously, moved to July 8th through the 10th of 2021, the physical Minnesota Para-Unity Convention, which has all the people that I know I would like to see, including I have just added like Rochelle Stratton, Brian Murray from Ghost Hunters, they'll join Grant, and of course the great Bishop James Long is going to be there. The Mystery Machine, the original Mystery Machine, and I'm in the works of securing the hot rod from the Munsters, along with Eddie Munster.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that would be cool. That
would be cool. And I still need to get a hold of the guy that he lives here in Minnesota, so I can't believe it's come. I haven't done it yet, but who's got the replica of Baby from Supernatural. So I'm hoping to have like an entire corner of the deck in the Edmund Fitzgerald room where all the vendors will be, of just having like these cars there for photos and everything like that. So that's going to be.
So you got the Mystery Mobile coming already.
Mystery Machine, yep.
Mystery Machine, rather. And you have the Munsters Mobile. And I forget who built this. Is that the legitimate original article one, or is that a repop?
It's a repop. Eddie Munster himself had it built.
Okay.
Remade, so to speak.
I briefly talked to the guy that designed and built that car. And he built a lot of them for Hollywood. I think he's now passed away. The original, that is. And so that would be cool if we could have Eddie Munster himself come in with the mobile, and maybe you guys can sit in it if he'll allow that and get your pictures.
Yeah, it's for like photos and stuff. I'm pretty sure. I will put that into the contract.
I would definitely put that in the contract.
And the other great thing that he's also has in the repertoire is he comes with like an escape room. Like he built an escape room in the back of this huge trailer. And so that will actually be available for people to go through, like a group of friends or something like that to go through as an Eddie Munster built escape room.
He's got to be in his 70s by now.
I honestly don't know. I've never seen the Munsters.
You've never seen the show The Munsters?
I've never seen the show The Munsters. A little before my time.
Oh, but it's on repeat.
I had to Google the car. Because I could not picture it. But yeah, so he all that and more. I got a couple more people that I'm looking to add to it. I mean, it's huge now, and it's only going to get better. And if you buy your tickets before October of this year, for the July event, you then get October 2nd and 3rd. I'm doing, I should say, Para-Uni E-Convention, which if you buy tickets for July, the October one is free, or $20 you can just buy just for October. That's 2 days, October 2nd and 3rd, live from the safety of your own home. Going to have great, speakers. Michelle Belanger, Chip Coffey, the great Joel Sturgis will be doing one.
Yeah, I will be doing one.
Doug Hychek from Monster Quest and a whole bunch of other things. I mean, just to name a few, Dustin Perry will be there. Heather Taddy and Chuck Zukowski will be doing a live thing. Plus virtual vendors. So including Teams and everything. It does have the ability of sharing somebody's screen and their audio. So like a team can do an evidence presentation. Something like that. And they can be it, since this is online, they can be anywhere in the country or even the world.
Are you still open for speakers? Or is that closed now?
I have to get everybody that is supposed to, because in order for me to add a speaker, they have to register for the event, and they are taking their sweet ass time. So I don't even have everybody registered yet that is going to be speaking, so I haven't even been able to make a schedule yet, which should be coming in the next week.
Well, it'll be a lot of fun, so make sure you tune in for both of them. You show up in Duluth to the physical one in July and sit in on the E-event, and I think that will be a lot of fun. That has been wildly popular lately, the E-events, for good reason. For social distancing reasons, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So even if you can't, for some reason, make it in July, you could definitely get your tickets to sit in on the E-event. And I'll say, and you get your tickets at mnparacon.com. Exactly. mnparacon.com is where all the fun of hijinks will be taking place. We got to run a break. We come back. We'll be talking with Lynn Monet. She wrote this book, Omnipresent. It's going to blow your socks off. I'm telling you. Be right back right after this.
Hi, Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Michael O'Neill. Tonight, we have a guest I've been looking forward to talking to all week. And it's kind of funny because we get a lot of guests, right? They come to us and we do this. I heard this lady on another radio show and her story, and I had to talk to her. Oh, my God. She wrote this great book called Omnipresent, and if you don't have it, you need to go buy it. It's available on Amazon right now, and I'm pretty sure right after this show, you're going to run out and be buying this thing. It's also out there in paperback, all sorts of different ways to do it. Lynn Monet's on the phone with us, and I don't even know what to say. I just want to listen, I guess, mostly, Lynn, because this story is crazy. Let me just start right there, guys. This is unlike anything that you've ever heard, but I will step aside and welcome Lynn to the show. Welcome to After Hours AM, Lynn.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Reading your book now that you graciously sent us. We're reading it, and wow. Why don't you just take us from the top of your story? I guess that's the best place to start now, isn't it?
I had just gone through a divorce that had bottomed out my credit, and I had to live in a single-wide trailer that I refurbished with my 2 little kids at the time to rebuild my credit. And because of my single person income, my pre-approved range for a mortgage was limited. It was a smaller amount, of course, than it would be for a two-family income. And so I had been looking for over a year, and God bless my realtor because she put up with me. But anyway, all of a sudden, I mean, all of the houses that I would look at either needed a lot of repair or they were in an area that wasn't that great. And I get this call from her, and the words should have resonated with me more, because she actually said when she called me that a colleague of hers had just been to a house, and she had just taken pictures and was getting ready to list it in the MLS, but that this house had not even been officially placed on the MLS yet at that point. It would be up later that afternoon. And she said, Lori, she said, this house is almost too good to be true, and it's in your price range. Well, it should have been ding, ding, ding. But it wasn't. Of course, I was thrilled and very curious about this house. And so she started to tell me, a little bit about it. It was a 2,400 square foot split level house. And if anybody doesn't know what a split level means, you go into the foyer of the house. It had a double door entry. You go into the foyer, and from the foyer, you either have to go upstairs to the main level or downstairs to the lower level. And 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It had a nice family room downstairs with a stone fireplace, as well as a 13-by-5 bonus room, a double-car garage, a workshop in the garage with a door to it, and of course kitchen, breakfast nook. It was a really, really nice house.
It sounds beautiful.
So it was, and it was brick to boot, and it was on a half-acre. I like to say Florida flat lot because everything in Florida is flat. So anyway, and up here in where it was in North Carolina, it was in East Flat Rock, North Carolina. It's nothing's flat up there. So when I say Florida flat lot, it was a nice flat lot. And when she started to mention, all of these things about it, she asked me to meet her within an hour at her office. So of course I got dressed, raced over so that we could go see this too good to be true house. And as she's driving me to the neighborhood, of course I'm looking, at the neighborhood to see maybe there, is a problem with the neighborhood or something. But I'm also looking at the papers that she gave me to kind of glance through that showed the pictures of the rooms and, showed the outside of the house. And I kept questioning her. I think I made her call the listing agent probably 3 or 4 times to ask, what's the matter with this house? Is it next to a dump? Does the next door neighbor have a sinkhole in their yard? Why is this house priced? It went for $133,900. $133,900. This house on a dead-end street, so there was not a lot of traffic coming through there. It was quiet, and I like to call it a trick-or-treat neighborhood, which to me is where the houses are close enough together that the kids can get there and get lots of candy, but not too close together that you could reach out and touch the side of your neighbor's house. But so it was in a trick-or-treat neighborhood, and I kept asking. So, I had her call several times to find, does it have indoor plumbing? What is the deal with this house? So when we pulled into the house, it was in a nice neighborhood in the suburbs, and, it was a second house on the left-hand side with this big, beautiful yard. And when we pulled in, I'm like, really? Is this it? I was thrilled. My heart was beating fast because I'm like, okay, I've got to see the inside. It must be gutted or something because there's just no way.
What's the catch?
This house easily could have been listed for $100,000 more than it was. So, and it was in an excellent school zone. The taxes on it were low, like half what they were where I was living before, in the city where I was living before. And so it had so many, attributes that would be attractive for somebody to want to stay there. So we went up to the door, and there was this thing continuously about the lock, which should have been a dead giveaway. But of course, these are things that are, they didn't even ping my radar at the time. I was just in awe of the house. And when we first tried to go inside, the keys that they had in the little lockbox thing would not go into the hole of the keyhole. And the realtor said to me, she said, Lori, she said, Lynn, that cat's out of the bag. But anyway, I think that they left us, the wrong keys for the house.
Looking back, do you think that was a one last chance to turn back kind of moment where the house was fighting a little bit? Like, this is your chance just to turn around.
Yeah, well, it was a threat. Let's put it that way. After all of the other things that happened, because I actually only slept 2 nights in the house with my family in the 8 months that I owned it before I sold it. But the key was a threat. That is for sure. It was something that turned out to be very important with the house. Mm-hmm. So the funny thing is once she said that to me, she went ahead and she tried the keys again, and it slipped right in like butter. And she's like, well, that's odd. She was getting ready to call thinking that they had left the wrong keys. And so then she got the key in, couldn't get it to turn. And then finally, when she made a comment about it, and then she tried it after that, it would turn. And then she couldn't get it back out. And so she actually, finally got it back out. But while the door was open, I went ahead and I went into the foyer, and the people had already moved out. I had been told that the owners of the house, that the husband had to transfer to another job somewhere far away, and that they had already moved out. They were motivated sellers because he didn't want to have to keep paying a mortgage in 2 places or paying for a home in 2 places.
Sure.
And so when I walked in, of course, there was no furniture or anything, and I started to walk up the stairs, and as I was going up the stairs, I caught the view out of my peripheral vision of a young man hanging in the stairwell.
You mean standing around, or?
No, he was hanging in the stairwell.
Oh my God!
When you would go in from the foyer, you would have to go up the stairs to the main level or down the stairs to the family room and the bonus room. He was hanging from the wrought iron railing that went from the kitchen wall to cover the part of the descending stairs so that you wouldn't fall into the stairs. And then the railing was for you, then there was a railing there also for you to go up. He was hanging from the wrought iron railing over the descending stairs. And I thought to myself, I caught my breath, and I'm like, what on earth? And of course, when I looked directly at it, there was nothing there. And of course, this was verified later on by the next door neighbor who had lived on the street before any of the houses were ever even built. And the road was even still dirt. It wasn't even paved. And he told me about the family that originally built the house in 1976, and that they had a son that hung himself in the house during his parents were actively in a divorce, and the mother had come home from work and found him. So that turned out to be true, and he was like a teenager, and this is how he presented that time. But of course, I'm in this house for the first time. I'm looking around. It's a great house, and I'm rationalizing. I thought to myself, why would I even think of something so horrible? And of course, I just kind of let the thought go. And
just kind of a question for you. Did you let it go because you're afraid? It hadn't hit the MLS yet. Were you afraid someone would snipe it from you, take it away from you, that home, and so you're willing to overlook that little bit subconsciously?
Yes, because so many of the other homes that were even halfway decent that I had gone to see, that I wanted to step back and even take 5 days to think about, by the time I went back, they were gone. So, and this one was just beyond my wildest dreams. I mean, this was like my dream home. I could envision, when I got to the top of the stairs, I was looking into this living room, and the way that the windows were set, I'm like, oh, wow, at Christmas time, my Christmas tree would look beautiful between those 2 windows, and I'm kind of picking out where I was going to place things in my mind. And plus, where we were living, my children were getting older. We needed more space, and it wasn't exactly the best place to be living, but it was out of necessity at that time that I had to move there. So anyway, it was a flash. And I kind of questioned myself in that moment, but then when I looked directly at it, there was nothing there. Yeah. So I rationalized it. And I went to the top of the stairs, and of course she toured me through the house, and I wanted to come back that afternoon with my kids and have them, because I wanted to make an offer on the house. And I figured at that point in time, I would just say a prayer and let it be up to God at that point as to whether I was meant to have it or not. So she agreed to meet me there that afternoon after I picked my kids up. And so I went home, I got them, I brought them back. It was I have 3 children, but the third one was born after all of this happened. Okay. So the 2 that I had at the time, and so we arrived, my son's in the back seat. Mommy, I love our new house. You know, he was like 7 years old, and my daughter was 13 at the time. And so when we went to go into the house, again, there was a struggle with the lock. And once my kids got into the foyer, of course, they shot up to the main level, and where they were down picking out their bedrooms. And I was talking to the realtor, who we at that point had noticed, because the house at that point in the afternoon had been placed on the MLS, and lots of realtors, there were like 4 or 5 cards on the counter, because every time a realtor comes in, they'll leave their business card. And there were like 4 or 5 cards on the counter that it had been shown. And actually there was a bid that day, the same as when I bid. So there were 2 of us bidding. So when the realtor called in to let them know that I was going to be doing the paperwork to make an offer, she said, well, we've already gotten an offer. So, you know, it'll be between those 2 offers and any others that come in. So my kids come down the hallway. You can hear their joyous chatter down the hallway, picking out their bedrooms, and they come back, and my daughter says to me, she says, Mom, Mommy, can we go downstairs and go and look at what's downstairs? And I said, well, of course you can. And it wasn't long, but maybe 5 minutes or less. And she came back up, and I'm still talking to the realtor, and she says to me, I don't want to live here. And I'm like, whoa. At first I didn't really, I couldn't imagine that she would say that. And so I questioned it. I'm like, what did you say? And she repeated it again, and she said, I don't want to live here. I don't like this house. And I remember I was feeling embarrassed, because here's my realtor that's been dragging me around for over a year looking at houses. And finally we get this one, and she's just looking at me kind of like, what? And so I said, are you crazy not to take this house? So I said to my daughter, I said, well, this decision is not yours. And I just assumed, she's 13. She's all of a sudden realizing that she's going to be going to a different school, and that, her friend's not going to be just living right around the corner, and those sorts of things. And so I figured, that was the reason behind it. And also that she didn't realize that our other house is only 20, 25 minutes away, and that her friends could come up for the weekend and do sleepovers and stuff. So she still wouldn't have, that distance from them. When I bought the house, I bought it in March, and I decided not to move into it right away, because the kids still had 8 weeks of school to finish. And I wanted them to finish in the school that they were. Yeah,
so the paperwork didn't get lost and this and that. Yeah, I get that.
Exactly. So, and then plus the commute wasn't that bad. But anyway, so I went ahead and I bid on the house. And when the day of the closing came, I thought that it was a little peculiar, because the couple, when they came, turned out that they hadn't moved out of state. And they hadn't changed jobs either. They were actually living with her parents, with their 2 kids, and they were working at the same place. And I thought, well, I remembered what the realtor had told me. Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, well, but I'm not going to pry, because maybe they had financial problems, something that's none of my business. I'm just grateful to have this house. So I was telling the wife, I said, I'm getting ready to have wooden flooring put in, because there was this off-white carpet in the house. And even though it was in good condition, it just wasn't going to work out with kids and a dog. So I wanted to go ahead and have those things done before we actually officially moved in. And she would not look me in the eye at all. She just kept staring at her feet. And so she finally said to me, and again, she didn't look up, and she said, well, that's what we wanted to do when I referenced the wooden flooring. And so, again, I let it go, and I said, well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate the house. But I really, reflecting back on that now, I know that they knew. And I think that, they definitely knew.
They knew a lot more than they're telling. They just want to be done with this house is the feeling I'm getting from you.
Exactly. And you know what? I can understand by the time I went through all that I went through with that house, I totally get where they were coming from. I really do. And so I never blamed them. I never reached out to contact them or anything again. I mean, it wouldn't have done any good. I had now signed on the dotted line for a 30-year mortgage. So regardless of what information I could get from them, it wouldn't make any difference at that point.
Yeah.
And so now I'm stuck. And just a little, is there anything that you wanted to know, or do you just want me to go on ahead?
Yeah, I guess a couple questions. I guess is, did the activity start as soon as you stepped foot? Like once the kids were in there, once everyone was kind of in there, even looking around, was there anything that would have cued you off that something's odd aside from the old owners kind of looking down at their feet? Were your spidey senses going off? Like, okay, this is not right.
Well, I was in denial the longest. My children and their friends and the dog were aware of the things in the house before I was willing to admit it. And of course, part of it was too because I had signed on the dotted line, and now here I am with this house as a single mom, and so I kind of had to make it work. So I continued to be in denial, and of course, the very first time that the children were in there, my daughter approached because she didn't see anything at that point, but she did feel something. But once we got the keys at closing, we went to the house. I brought makings along for dinner. We were going to have a floor picnic. And while we were there, I was browning some hamburger for tacos, and my daughter comes into the kitchen and she asked me what I wanted. And I told her that, I hadn't called her. And she reiterated, she said, yes, you did. You called me twice, she said, and I told you that I was coming, and then you called me again. What did you want? And I'm like, listen, I swear I didn't call you. And of course she's like, I swear you did. And all of a sudden my son comes into the kitchen and he said, Mommy, I heard you call her too. So in that point, again, it was little things, but nothing extreme yet.
Yeah.
And so I rationalized it. I said, okay, well, Brittany's a popular name, and there's probably another child on the street with the same name, and it was supper time. Her mom might have been out in the front yard calling for her kid to come home, her Brittany, and I'm sure that we'll meet this person, and she'll make a nice friend. So, that we just kind of let that one go. But then the very next day, I went back to the house, and my kids I had dropped off at school first, and I was planning on pulling up some of the carpeting and the stripping myself because I wanted to save money on my single person income and have the subflooring ready for the wooden flooring, so all I would have to pay is to have it installed. And I went over there and I went up the stairs to the main level and put my purse down on the kitchen counter, and I start to look around the room, and I'm noticing that the light that's inside of the oven was on, and the one that was overhead where the hood thing is over the stove, and then the ceiling light was on in the kitchen. And I thought, well, that's weird, and then I started to walk through the house, and every single light in every single room was turned on. Now, granted, there still was no furniture. These were like the lights that were ceiling lights.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, well, normally with kids, if there was a light or two left on, you think that one of your kids might have ran back and left something on.
Yeah,
but in this case, every
single
light was on.
Yeah, not every light in the house on.
That's right. So I thought, well, maybe that the neighbors had been entrusted with a key, and that after we left, they came over to the house to check the house for the previous owner. Maybe the previous owner hadn't had a chance to notify whoever this person was that had the key to the house, because supposedly they had moved out 6 months before.
Yeah.
And again, this was verified by the next door neighbor too, that they had only lived in the house for 6 months, and then they let it sit for 6 months, and before they put it up for sale. So I went across the street to the neighbor's house, and I introduced myself, and I said, I'm the new owner. Did you notice anybody over at the house last night, or has anybody in the neighborhood that you know have been entrusted with a key to the house?
Mm-hmm.
And they, of course, said no. And they had made mention that they had gone for a walk that night, and that they noticed that the lights were on the walkway, which were solar lights, so those would automatically come on with dark, but that they didn't notice any lights on in the house. And so I thought, well, maybe they're on a timer. This house is new to me. I'll figure out, what's happening with the lights. Again, I let it go.
Yeah, well, a lot of houses, not to stop you at all, when you first move in, there's little things that you don't know about yet, little gremlins. Like maybe the wiring, maybe something was going on with those lights. But every light, though, I mean, that's just insane, to be honest.
Yeah, that's not normal.
No, it's
not. But still, I kept trying to say, okay, well, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
So
trying to make the proverbial lemonade out of lemons is what you try to do.
That's right. So I that day I went through the house. I made sure everything was shut off. I locked everything up, and I went to leave, and the front door was giving me a hard time. That lock, I got the key in there. It wouldn't turn. I couldn't get it. So finally I got frustrated with it, and I did get the key out, and I'm like, man, I'm going to bring some WD-40. I'm going to soak this thing the next time I come, because I'm not putting up with the sticky lock. And also, because I was having workers come into the house to work on the house, I didn't want to change the locks yet until we actually moved into the house, because I needed to give people keys, to finish their work. So I went ahead and I opened the door, and I reached around and I turned the knob and closed just the knob lock and left and got my kids. So again, drop off my kids. The next morning, come back, and I go to stick my key in the knob lock, not even turning it, and it pushes in. And I thought, okay, well, the reason why the deadbolt wasn't working is apparently I didn't have the door all the way into the door frame, door jamb, whatever you want to call it, pulled in. So when I went in, I went upstairs, I put my purse on the counter, and at that point I had finished pulling up the rest of the carpet, and I wanted to start putting a fresh coat of white paint on the ceilings, because it didn't look like it had had the ceilings painted since 1976. So I figured, while it's just the subfloor, if anything gets spattered, I don't even need to put a drop cloth. I could just go ahead and paint and make a mess.
Yeah.
And so I went to open the sliding glass doors in the back to let some air in, since that's the room I was going to be working in, and I noticed that the little pin thing was dangling at the side of the door, and when I went to open the sliding glass door, it opened. It was not locked. So I thought again, well, I remember that checking that key thing in there, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't see what I thought. Maybe I overlooked it. So then I went downstairs to the garage to open the garage doors and bring in some more boxes from my car, and those were unlocked. And I thought, well, again, it's been a while since I've had garage doors. Usually they're the electric ones with the button that you push.
Yep.
These are manual. So maybe I thought that I locked them, and I instead accidentally unlocked them. And but then I looked over at the door where the workshop was, and I had brought in boxes the day before, and I had stacked them on one on top of the other. I'm like 5 feet 9 inches tall, and they came up to almost chin level on me, as well as about 3 feet out from the door. And I noticed that the chain lock on that door, which was a normal door that you would open and come in and out of, was dangling on the side. And I thought, wait a minute, now I know for sure that was locked. And I thought, that means that somebody has a key. The only way that door could have been unlocked is if somebody was inside of this house. They would have had to have moved all of those boxes away from the door to reach that, and then push all of my boxes back after they unlocked it back exactly where it was. So back to the neighbors I go, across the street, and this time I'm like, did you see any kids playing in the yard? Did you see any lights on after I left? Here's my phone number. Please call me if you notice anyone in the yard after this point or any lights on in the house when my car is not there.
I would have thought right away that the previous owners might have still had a key or something. You know, like someone came in and exactly what you were thinking. You know, someone's been in here.
Exactly. So, and at that point, I was pretty sure somebody had been in there. So, anyway, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm having a little postnasal drip, but anyway, so they agreed. They took my phone number, and I said, and if you call me, I might need you to call 911. You know, if I haven't left the lights on or there's a car there, please call 911 and I'll be on my way. I'll be there within about 25 minutes. And they agreed to do that. So that's how, all of that worked out. But the lady did say to me, she said, yesterday when you were leaving, I was standing at my kitchen window washing my dishes. And I'm not trying to be a nosy neighbor, but I noticed that you were having trouble with that front door. And she said, and you even walked halfway to your car and doubled back and went back and grabbed that knob and you shook it to make sure that it was in position properly. And I had not even remembered doing that until she mentioned it. And I'm like, well, then how come it pushed open, when I put the key in, if I was like jerking on it and it wasn't moving.
So all these little things, though, are they starting to maybe make you think that we got some strangeness going on here, or are we still not at that point yet?
We're still not quite at that point yet. When it started to amp up, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, when it started to amp up was the 2 nights that we spent the nights in there. The first night that we spent the night, my daughter brought a friend along to do a sleepover, and these are 2 teenage girls, and the one girl woke up and she was so frightened by something in the house she couldn't describe. She wanted to go home at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So, of course, that didn't make the sleepover very fun, and she was determined she couldn't be talked out of it. And then the second time that we came back and spent the night, we brought our dog, and there were problems with her even wanting to go into the house. I had to carry her into the house. But that was the night that I saw something for the first time. And I had been in the master bathroom painting. And my kids, I had 2 queen-size blow-up mattresses in the master bedroom with a TV in the middle of them. So one kid was on one kid was on the other. They were watching the movie Hidalgo, and they had finally finished the movie and gone to sleep. It was about 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night, and I went to the kitchen to clean up my stuff. And as I'm leaving the kitchen, of course, there's that wrought iron railing to my right, and then the stairs coming up to the main level, and then you pass that, you go into the hallway, and at the end is the master bedroom where my kids were. And all of a sudden, out of my peripheral vision, I catch this swiftly moving silhouette of a creature that is not of this earth, and it shot up the ascending stairs, went across the double entry doors, shot up the second set of stairs right in front of me, and shot down the hallway. Well, I froze in that moment because I'm standing there and I'm thinking, what on earth is that, my dear God? And I'm thinking, I've been breathing paint fumes. I haven't eaten anything since earlier. Maybe my blood sugar's off. Maybe a car drove through a street light outside, because some of my windows didn't have window dressings on them yet, but still it didn't make sense how that figure could come
Holy
up.
rationalization, Lori.
Right, but the thing was, is then I heard my dog growling at the end of the hallway. And when I went, that kind of snapped me out of my frozenness at the moment because she was growling. And so I went down to the master bedroom where my kids were sleeping. My dog was there, and she was standing, staring at that doorway opening with her hair standing up on the back of her neck. I have never seen her do like that before. And even though I entered the room, I kind of pet her on the head. She put her ears back briefly for a second, but she just stood focused, hyper-focused on that doorway opening. And so I was going to go ahead and get ready for bed, and I'm like, well, maybe she needs to go out. So I took her out, didn't want to come back in, carried her in, put her in the room with the kids, showered, and went to bed. That morning when we got up, I said to my daughter, I said, well, how did you sleep last night? And she said, I didn't sleep at all. She said, I felt like something was standing in that doorway staring at me all night long. And when I got my son dressed for school, when he got into the car, he had bite marks on his legs.
Well, was the dog agitated? And you know how dogs are sometimes. The kids are sleeping. Was it that kind of bite mark, or are we talking something completely different?
No, we're talking something else. The thing that I saw going up the stairwell was almost wolf-like. It was the description of it. It was something not of this earth, but it was wolf-like, and it was up on its haunches when it scurried down the hallway. And he had bite marks in 3 different places on his legs. But the dog that I have, the bite marks that were on his legs were smaller than the bite marks that my dog would have left. And my son had had a bath the night before and was in his pajamas, and I didn't see anything on his legs. So when he woke up that morning, and I'm looking at his legs, and I'm like, what happened to your legs? I said, you've got bite marks. Did Sally bite you? And he said, no. And my dog wasn't prone to biting, but like I said, the mouth, it was an imprint of an upper and lower bite. They were purple like bruises, not like fresh bites, but like bites that had been there for a little while, leaving the purple marks with the teeth indentations. And I'm like, well, who bit you? What happened? And they were it looked like a dog type bite. And he said, I don't know. Well, for something to have left bruise marks like that on his legs, if he had been awake, he would have been aware of the dog doing it, because it would have inflicted pain. I mean, he would have been crying. So he just kind of looked, and he's like brushing at it, thinking that it's going to wipe off. And then he had one on his calf. And I thought, this is wild. Well, of course, down the road, when I had a paranormal group come in with it was a paranormal, I had 13 different denominations of religion in there. But anyway, this paranormal group came in from Georgia, and it was led by a Episcopalian priest named Andrew Calder, who has since passed away. But he told me that he actually got pictures of the ghosts in the house. He verified that I had an infestation. He stated that with spirits, angels, and demons, that there is a hierarchy of angels, but there's also a sub-hierarchy going in the other way of demons. And the higher the level of the demon, the more they can do. They can leave bite marks. They can leave claw marks. They can leave bruises. And he was even working on a few cases at that time of women that had actually gotten raped.
Oh, my Lord.
And the telltale signs of it. They can pull hair. They can throw things. They can move things. So, and he was saying that I had some higher level demons in the house. There ended up being 2 demons, and the young man that had hung himself in the stairwell were still in that house. So,
wow, that's a crowded house. Now, at any point did you just say to yourself, okay, screw this, we're moving out of here? You know what?
Of course
we're just going to sell this joint and we're out of here.
I did. We only spent 2 nights in there. I owned it for 8 months. We spent 2 nights. That was the last night that we spent in there.
Where were you going in that 8 months? Was it your old house?
Well, I still owned that single wide. I owned the single wide. After about 2 months, I did finally sell it. I mean, I sold it, but there was that 30-day gap where I needed to get my furniture out of there and into the new place. And I ended up having to, almost 10 days before the final, for them to move in, I had to give them their money back, because I couldn't move into that house. The priest told me, Father Calder told me that even though he had done the blessing on the house, that because the infestation that I had was so bad that that I would have to continue to actively, if I saw something in the house to command it to leave. And I even told him at one point, I said, look, I'm a single woman. It's bad enough to have to deal with criminals at large, but having to deal with something invisible in your house that you have no one you can call, and if you did call, they'd come with the white coats and the little thing to take you away.
Sure.
I said, because they would think that you were crazy. I said, and not only that, I said, I would never be at peace. At any time, a piece of paper would blow off of a desk or something, I would always think that they were back. And I said, what if they return when I'm sleeping? What if they crawl in bed with me? What do you do if you're having a Thanksgiving dinner and your family, your extended family has come over, your friends are there, and all of a sudden you see a demon walk through the room, and you stand up and you start screaming, in the name of Jesus Christ, get out of my house. Do you really think that those guests are going to want to stay and eat?
No.
And not only that,
no.
do you really think that they're even going to want me to be invited to their house? Because I might be bringing more than dessert.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. I couldn't live in that environment. And that's why my phobia is something crawling in bed with me. Oh, yeah, that's what kind of made that shudder noise. Because that would freak me the heck out. I would be so gone, it would make everyone's head spin. But you're right. You can't live under that kind of fear. I mean, what kind of life is that where every little noise is going to make you weary of what could be happening next?
Right. My son, the cover of the book, he helped me design, but the cover of the book is an actual event that occurred in the house, and he was 7 years old. He was in the master bedroom using the bathroom. Thank goodness he was on the toilet when this happened, because what is on the cover of that book is what he saw coming in towards him, and it scared him so badly that to this day, at 22 years old, he will not sleep in a dark room. He has to have all of the lights on.
Wow. Damn. And look at your cover. For anyone that's not seen the cover, go ahead and visit Omnipresent.com, and that will have the cover of this book. And that is something that I don't think I'd like to see that, to be honest with you.
No. And actually, there's a website. My website is under construction. It is LynnMonet.com. But you've also, the Omnipresent book is by Lynn Monet on Amazon. Apparently there are a couple of others called Omnipresent. I did choose Omnipresent. I know that it's usually a term that is used in a godly sense. But in the case of this house, it was like no matter what I tried to get rid of the things, they kept coming back. The entities were always at large. And they were I was constantly encountering them, and no matter what I couldn't get rid of them, they always made their presence known.
How about
so
workmen?
I felt that the Omnipresent was fitting.
You mentioned you were going to be having workmen come in the home. Did anyone ever encounter anything that was working at the home?
Yes. As a matter of fact, the first 3 workers didn't stay past the first day. 2 of them, the very first 2, neither of them came back to be paid, and one of them, the second one, left his DeWalt tools behind, and he had asked me to put them in a box out in front of my garage door, and they sat there for 3 weeks, and he never came and picked them up. The third worker was a friend of mine's cousin, and he was between jobs, and he was there one day when I was there to put in the wooden flooring, and this particular day, just to kind of to bring everybody up to what was happening, was I was in the hallway painting, and it was the room. He was paralleling me on the other side of the wall, putting in the wooden flooring, and I had turned for a minute, and out of my peripheral vision, I saw this young man, walking up the stairs from the foyer, and he was so real and so solid. He had on a white Oxford shirt, one of those collars, with the collar that with the button thing. He had on either jeans or navy blue pants, penny loafers, no socks. He had brown hair parted down the middle, kind of 80s styled, feathered back kind of thing. And his face he was very somber. and his face, his cheeks were either reddened from acne or sunken in or something. And I remember he was so real that I turned in that moment and I said, "Did you knock?" Because I thought that he had just walked into the house. And of course, when I turned to look, there was nothing there. And I'm hearing the worker in the room saying, no, I just dropped something. He thought that I was talking to him, but I was talking to what I saw on the stairs. And I realized in that moment that there was a ghost. So that particular day, a lot of things happened. I got spooked by that. I didn't say anything to the worker, but I was happy for it to get to be about 1:30, 2 o'clock so I could leave and go pick up my kids. It was close to time.
Yeah.
And I was in the car line at the kids' school waiting to pick them up, and I get a call from the worker. And he says to me, "I have to leave right now." He says, "There is something weird about this house," and the line dropped.
Wow.
And I tried for an hour. Yeah, and I tried for an hour to get a hold of him, and finally I got a hold of him, and I said, "Well, what happened?" And he said to me, "Nothing, but I'd rather be there when you're going to be there next." And I said to him, "Well, I've been a nurse for 34 years plus, and I was working what they called a bailer shift on the weekends. And, of course, it was a Friday, so I wasn't planning after picking up my kids on going back to the house until Tuesday. So that would have been, 4 days before I would have returned." And I told him that, and I explained to him, too, that I needed to start getting my furniture moved in, because at that point I had sold the single wide and I needed to get my stuff out. And he had asked if he could bring his girlfriend, and they could stay. I said, "Yeah, you can stay. There's nobody in the house. You can stay there. There's running water, bed. My kids' bedrooms had been, some of my daughter's furniture had come. Anyway, so he never came back. And that particular day, when I did get a hold of him, he told me that the house had not been secured, and we had a air conditioner, a window that needed to be pulled in order to close the window, and I didn't want rain and bugs to get in, so I ended up having to go back that Friday evening. So I asked my neighbor Ellen to go with me, and on the way there I was kind of explaining to her. I said, "Do you believe in ghosts?" And she says, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I think I got one in my house." And she said, "Okay." I said, "Do you have a problem with going in with me to help me get the air conditioner from the window? Because if you do, I appreciate you going with me," because I didn't want to go by myself at that point, especially not in the dark. "And I'll get my neighbor's husband to come and help me, pull it in." And she says, No, I have no problem." So we pull in, we get there, and again, the stupid key lock problems. I get the door open. Ellen goes into the foyer, and she's standing there, and I'm fighting with the key lock, and she says to me, "You're not going to leave me here and let the boogeyman get me, are you?" And she started to chuckle. Well, they ended up targeting her in that house. Yes. We went up the stairs, down the hallway, got the air conditioner in, and then we stopped briefly in the kitchen. We couldn't have been there more than like 7 or 10 minutes. And my daughter at the time my teenage daughter wanted a wild horse theme in her room, and I had gotten these carved horse heads to drape her valance over her window, and I wanted to show them to Ellen. So we went into the kitchen. I said, "Stop, I want to show you something real quick." So we went in. Ellen is holding one in each of her hands, and we hear this, the only way I can describe it is like this buzzing, gurgling sound that was kind of coming up from behind us, and I didn't say anything because I thought I was the only one hearing it, and I had heard it previously at another time when something happened. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden she says to me, "What's that noise?" And I told her, I said, "You remember I told you about the ghost?" And she says, "Oh, yeah." And then she starts screaming. She dropped the horse heads down on the counter, and she started grabbing her shirt. And she was screaming, "Oh, my God, it's a spider bite. My back is burning. Something has bitten me on my back." And I lifted up the back of her shirt, and there was a 4-inch claw mark on her back between her shoulder blades, even underneath her bra strap where her bra connected. And as a medical professional, Usually if somebody gets a scratch like that, it was one single scratch, looked like a cat scratch, but just one single one. It was diagonal. It was about 4 inches. I'm watching it welt and bead blood in front of me, which is a response that a wound has, an initial response for a scratch. Even if you pick a scab off of a wound later on, it does not have that welting process.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that the wound was very, very fresh from a medical standpoint. And I asked her, I said, Ellen, what happened? When you got out of the car, I thought maybe she snagged herself on the corner of the door, car door. I said, did you snag yourself on the car door? She says, no, what is it? Get it off of me. You know, what is it, a spider? It's burning. It burns. And then all of a sudden she started screaming. She said, it's got me again, it got me again, and it was on her stomach. And so she pulled up her shirt, and she's looking at her stomach, and there's an additional claw mark below her belly button off to her left side, angled again, and it was about 3 inches, and it was doing the same thing. So needless to say, we left. I, of course, started screaming out prayer into the kitchen, commanding these things to leave us alone and to leave the room. And it seemed like the buzzing, gurgling force of whatever it was, or portal, or whatever it was they were using to come into the house. It was almost like a mist, just backed up and hovered into the doorways. So we left and got out of there, and Ellen was complaining about the burning all the way home. So when I dropped her off, I went home to my single-wide trailer, and I started getting on the internet, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, maybe a blessing.
Yeah, something.
Maybe a blessing will help the house. You know, there's got to be some way to fix this problem, because I wasn't moving in there if it wasn't fixed, but yet in the same token, I was stuck with a mortgage. And you know, people don't seem to realize that sometimes in these situations when you say, nope, not me, I would have been out of there. You don't always have that option when you have signed on the dotted line.
No, there's lawyers involved and everything else, and you got to convince them it's uninhabitable.
That's right. And the thing was, is I did go back to my lawyer, and that's part of the story too in there. And I tried to look for a loophole to get out from underneath the mortgage, and he told me that unfortunately, you know, it had to be an act of God, not an act of Satan. And of course, he thought I was loopy until I gave him permission to go stay at the house with his family, and he, of course, declined. But anyway, I had 13 witnesses in the house that either saw and or were attacked by the unwanted beings that were in the house. But anyway, just to go back to the Ellen thing that she continued to have it. So the next day I got out the yellow pages after looking online at paranormal sites. I couldn't really. I wanted somebody that would come and get the entities out. I didn't need to have them identified. I already knew I had a problem, so I didn't need somebody to come in and say, yeah, you have a problem. I'm like, I already know that. I wanted somebody to come to get them out.
Yeah.
So I went through the yellow pages, one by one, church after church, and I called every single one. And they all referred me to the Catholics, everybody, except there were a few people that told me that if I was attending their church, I wouldn't be having this problem. And another one had, because I had made mention that I was a single mom, automatically thought that I was being promiscuous, and I was not. You know, I mean, I hadn't even been on a date in 4 years, and I was focusing on my kids, so I was not being promiscuous. And
so they weren't really offering help; they were more offering judgment.
Right, and they were then they would hang up. So it kept happening, and finally, because I'm a Presbyterian, I finally came across a Presbyterian minister that was willing to help. But even he told me at one point, when he addressed my problem to his church, he said that he was more afraid of the Bible thumpers than actually the things in my house. So I ended up reaching out to him. I also reached out to a paranormal group, as I had made mention, Georgia Paranormal, with Father Andrew Calder, and he came. He set up the EVP readings. He came in the night before the actual blessing, and he got pictures of the ghosts. He filmed things in the dark. He had the infrared cameras and all of that sort of thing, and again confirmed what I had suspected, and did a blessing on the house. But again, he told me that it would be something that I may even have to have done more than once, and he was rather upset with me when I threw in the towel and said no. And he said, no, you have to stand your ground. I said, I'm not. What am I going to do when my kid comes up to me in the middle of the night and says that there's something under his bed? And there really is.
Yeah.
Or in his bed. Or they come to crawl in bed with me for safety because they're scared, and then something comes and pulls the covers off. I said, I can't put my children through that. I said, can you imagine the post-traumatic stress that this would create, having them having to be, grow up in a house like that. And he still didn't agree with me, but I didn't care. I had a fourth guy. Oh, I wanted to tell you about the third guy. Didn't get to tell you about that. The third worker, when he didn't come back, I asked my friend, I said, would you please ask your cousin what happened in the house? I have a feeling it was something to do with paranormal. And she said, okay, I'll ask him. So she had him, it was like 4th of July or something at that point, and he had come over to her house, and he had a beer, so he was feeling a little talkative, and she asked him, she said, what happened in Lori's house? And he told her, he said, I feel bad that I didn't finish the job for her. She's a really, really nice lady. And he said, but that house, and again, I can't say these words on the radio, but we'll say beep, 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 up. And he said, I couldn't go back there. So she asked him what had happened, and he said that he was putting in the floor, it was a tongue and groove flooring with adhesive, and he had put the adhesive on. He had a trowel, a rubber mallet, and a block of wood to kind of tap the flooring in once he had
the laminate, the wood flooring.
Yeah, exactly. So he had one of those 4-wheeled wheelie seats that they use in gardens because he had messed up his knees playing football, and so he put it in, and all of a sudden he goes to reach down to get his mallet to tap it in, and it's not there. So he for a minute thought that maybe he had rolled over the top of them, or they were more behind him or something. So he started looking around, and there they were paralleling each other, all three of them, the block, the mallet, and the trowel, lined up in front of the door, like 4 feet from where he was. It was actually, maybe even 5 feet from where he was, and it spooked him. He thought at first that maybe I had come back and that I was playing a joke on him, and that I had snuck in behind him quietly and picked up his tools and moved him, and he just didn't notice. So he said that he got up from the chair, he kind of looked in the hallway, he yelled out for me, he says, are you here? And there was no response, so he picked up his tools and he was weirded out. So he told her that he turned on the light at that point because it was like 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sun had shifted to the back of the house instead of the front, and he was at a room in the front. And then he had a little battery operated radio, and so he turned on his radio, and he sat down to put in another piece of wooden flooring, and the light turned itself off, and then the radio turned itself off, and then he heard the tools scooting behind him, lining back up exactly where they were.
Oh, hell no. I'd still be tearing out of the house.
Yeah. He said that
no way. I'd be like, excuse me, bring that back here.
Yeah. He said that he couldn't get out of there fast enough. As a matter of fact, he left so fast that the tools were still left there.
Yeah. Wow.
He didn't even grab them. And that's when he called me when I was in the line picking up my kids. When he called me and said that he had to leave right away. So, and he never came back, but that was what was happening. Wow. I had a fourth worker come into the house that actually was able to finish the job, but he was stoned all the time. So, he did a good job. And
that's all that matters.
As long as he didn't do it around me or my kids, I'm okay with that. And it being stoned, masked out, being bothered by those demons, or who knows, maybe he had an attachment on him and had his own set of demons carried with him with his addiction problem. But, he did finish the work, and I was able to list the house, and I did sell it.
Well, thank God. Did you sell it to a family that didn't believe or wasn't affected? I mean, so that you could move it, or what was that? What happened there?
Well, when I put it originally up for sale, the first family that came to look at it, and I want to back up a little bit, because in some of the interviews that I've done, I like to always give a piece of something that I haven't talked about that's in the book yet. Mm-hmm. Prior to, we had a family that wanted to come and look at the house, and my mom and I were there when the call came through, and I made the arrangements while I was in the house, which I learned not to do with the next set of people. And this is something that I haven't talked about on the radio before, so this is a special tidbit. When my mom and I returned to the house to kind of, set up a few little things to make it look homey, put some pretty towels or a plant here and there so that it didn't look so stripped. And when we pulled up into the driveway, started walking up the walkway, I looked up at the second floor window and I said, "Mom, it looks like the glass is moving." And then I realized as I looked that it was covered in flies. It was totally covered in flies. Yes. And then when I looked at the downstairs window with the split levels, there were scattered flies on those, but these upstairs windows were covered in flies. So when we went in to the house, I said, "Mom, those are flies." And she's like, "Oh my God." So we went in, we left the front door open. We were expecting to be swarmed by these flies. And instead, they were trying to get out. They were all covering the glass doors. They were covering the windows in the upstairs there. I said, "Mom, how on earth did all of these flies get in here? There's no trash. We didn't leave any stinky rags or there's no food. The toilet hasn't been used." So, I mean, there was nothing in the house to draw those flies, and there were so many. And they had speckled all around the window jambs.
I apologize
the window
for my dog.
frames.
Sorry.
That's okay. All around the window frames, they were speckled in poo and fly excrement. And so what we did is there were these one sets of windows that were in the kitchen that somebody, when they painted the outside of the house, actually painted shut. So I had to take the screens off of those windows to let because there were flies that were stuck between the pane and the screen. And I tell you, there was no way. I mean, there was no holes, no broken glass, no openings.
There's no godly
nothing,
reason why
not
they'd be
even
in
in
there.
the screen. Yeah, there's no way. So I had to take the screens off and shoo those flies off of the glass into the house and out the front window and out the door. And my mom and I ran around with towels flogging, because all that we had at that point were the decorative things that we had brought. So we were using those to flog and clean with at this point, because those people were supposed to show up like in an hour. And fortunately, they called me and said that they were going to be running behind by about an hour. But because if they had come in on top of us, they would have seen us running around flogging these flies, trying to usher them out of the house. So when the people came, they had 4 children. They brought 3 of their 4 children. And again, same scenario. Kids go running down the hallway, looking into the bedrooms. You hear them picking out their bedrooms. And the one bedroom was a little bit smaller than the rest. And they then wanted to go downstairs and look at the downstairs, bonus room and family room. And they weren't down there long. Kid comes up. He overhears little sister saying to him, "I'll take the little room. Bobby can have the creepy room."
Oh, no. And so kind of begins again for a new family is what it's doing.
Yes. And so in that, I knew that I could not, with a good conscience, sell the house to a family with children, because the children, especially under certain ages, they don't have those filters, and a lot of times they can see interdimensionally. And they obviously could feel and or see what was down there. So, and his family wanted the house so bad too. The neighborhood she had grown up in, it was similar to the house type that she grew up in, and all of this stuff. But fortunately, that same day that they were there and left, I got a call from a retired couple from Florida. I came up from Florida, so I didn't know that whole area was haunted as all get out. There were even books written on it. I had no idea, and until after the fact, of course.
Yeah.
But so this couple came up from Florida. They really, really liked it. It was a cash buy. So I let the couple know with the children that I had somebody that wanted to buy it with a cash buy, and because they were struggling coming up with the down payment. And I really didn't want to sell it to them anyway. So when the couple came, and understand this too, I wanted to burn that house down to the ground.
Yeah.
But there was no way that I could afford to pay an $800 a month mortgage payment to let those things live in it while I was trying to feed and take care of my kids in another place. There's no way. So I understood in that moment why the owners that sold it to me had to sell it. They were in the same boat. So they walked through, they loved the place, and we were kind of going over some papers because I had an inspection done prior before I bought it, so they wanted to use the same one since it was so recent. And as we were leaving the main level, going down the ascending stairs to the foyer area and then out the double entry doors, I went out first. And I overheard the wife say to the husband, "Why did you push me?" And he said, "I didn't push you." He said, "I'm 3 steps back, and I'm holding the rail. I did not push you," because she accused him a second time. "Yes, you did." He's like, "No, I did not." And she says, "Well, I don't know what happened then." And, my heart just squeezed because I had really hoped that all that I had done with the house, trying to get the things out, would have been effective.
Yeah.
So in all good conscience, I couldn't not say something. So they came out, and I looked at them, and I said, "Do you believe in ghosts?" And they said no. They said that they were Baptist, that they did not discuss those sorts of things, that they did not entertain those sorts of things, and that they were protected from the devil. So I said, okay.
Good enough.
In that moment,
people.
but in that moment, I would have been honest.
Yeah.
If they had asked me, I would have been totally honest with them. And, and of course, everything signed, and I really, really hoped, I really wanted it to work out for them. But about 6 months later, I was in the area, and I was kind of curious, as they got settled in and that sort of thing. And so I got up the courage to drive past the street. I didn't get up the courage to drive on the street. Yeah. So because it was the first house in on the left, but I could, as you're coming up the street that you would turn in off of, you could see the back and the side and everything because of the way that the houses were separated. You could still get a pretty good view on it.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was passing the street, I noticed that there was a sign in the front yard, and I couldn't tell if the sign was actually in the house's yard that I sold or in the house next door. It was kind of on the line. And, of course, curiosity got me, and I'm like, I have to know what that sign is. Hopefully she's selling Avon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everything's fine, and they're having a dandy time in there.
Yeah, exactly. So I mustered up the nerve, and I went to the next street, and I turned around, and I came back, and I said a prayer. I said, "Please, dear Lord, for one thing, please protect me, and do not let those people walk outside and see me driving past their house, because they'll recognize me, and I don't want them to recognize me."
I don't blame you.
So, so I turn on the street, and I drive to past the house, and of course it is a for sale by owner sign. And in that moment, I felt crushed. I really wanted for them to be successful in the house, and I realized in that moment that the the things that be in that house were too much for them also. And I really felt terrible about it. But so then I go to the driveway at the end, and I turn around, and I have to now go past the house a second time because I'm on a dead-end street. And as I'm passing the house, I have some music playing. It was actually Marvin Gaye was playing softly, and all of a sudden I get in front of their house, and my radio cranks full blast, and I did not touch it. And I'm trying to turn it off or turn it down. I'm grabbing the button, and I'm rushing to try, and I couldn't get it to turn down or turn off. And as soon as I got to the stop sign and I turned to the right to head away, just as I got fully onto that street, my radio shut off all by itself. And to me, that was like it was a calling card that not only did they know I was there, but they also wanted me to know that they were still there. I never went back again.
Do you know at all what's become of the house? I mean, rumors, or have you heard anything? What state it's in now?
I have no idea.
And you don't care, right?
Well,
I don't blame you if you don't.
Well, I don't really. I try not to think about it. That was, it was the most unbelievable thing to have happen, and I mean, and even with that, the whole reason why I even wrote the book was not to sensationalize on it, but there is so little help out there for that kind of thing, and there were so many people that came to me because I spoke openly of my story because it was to people that had known me forever, and they knew that I was not some whack job, and plus I had witnesses, and so many people came to me for help or came to me saying, oh my God, we had, in my aunt's bedroom, this rocking chair, it would move itself. Or they would tell me these stories of things that had happened, and they're like, I've never told anybody this before in my life, and when I used to tell my parents, they didn't believe me, and da-da-da-da-da. But I'm going to tell you because you'll believe me. But, there's so little help out there for this kind of thing, and when you're in that desperate situation, if somebody comes to you and says, I know how to get them out, you're willing to come up with any amount of money that they ask for if they can really do it. And unfortunately, in the price range, I guess, that I could afford, or even in it may not have even mattered, but the people that came tried very hard, but they were not able to accomplish that. Now, they did accomplish letting the young man leave. The young man's spirit was released, and he, during a blessing, he was told to go to the light, and they opened the sliding glass door, and he ran right past me so fast, and the demons were held at bay so that they couldn't continue to control him. And I truly, truly feel that the demonic presences in the house are the reason that the young man hung himself. And some of the things that I've learned about hauntings are that it's not about the age of the house. It's about the ground that it's built on. So a brand new house can also be haunted if it's built in the wrong place.
Sure.
And so I think that those demons were in that ground before that house was built, and caused the young man to do what he did.
Yeah, it could have been built 6 feet to the left, and you might have been fine.
Well, I had a lady tell me that if it had been built 3 feet to the right, it would have been okay. She was one of the last people that came to the house to bless the house. She was of an Indian background, and when she pulled into the driveway of the house, she brought a friend with her, and they both got out of the car, and she pointed to if you're facing the house, it was actually the left side of the house that she pointed at, but if it had been moved over 3 feet to the right, she said if your house had been built 3 feet to the right, you wouldn't be having this problem. And then she pointed to the house that was catty corner across the street and the one behind it, and she said, I bet that house and the one behind it is haunted too. And I only owned the house for 8 months. I did come regularly during the daytime, even after the 2 nights that we spent there, but I didn't bring my children at that point. There was one point that I did bring them back because I was told after a clearing that it was fine. It turned out not to be. But they were right. I mean, that house turned over. I mean, every 2 months there was a new family moving in there.
Yeah.
So I knew that there was something wrong, and the house that was behind it was a similar type to mine, but nobody ever lived there the entire time that I owned that house. So I think that she was right, and she was talking about a like a tunneling thing that she felt that they were doing, and that's why it went in that direction, and that when the house was built, it was an interruption to the path.
Like a ley line, like a
yes, exactly. Yeah, and that it broke into that. And ironically, in the story, I tell, and this is another tidbit that I haven't discussed on radio, so it's another thing that's a little different. After she had left the house, she told me that I would need to go back in and sage the house to clean up any micrometastasis, so to speak, any leftover negativity or anything like that. So I did, and I took my friend Ellen with me, the one that had originally gotten clawed. She came back with me. And when we were in the downstairs rooms, which seemed to be where the entities hung out most often, they like being around fuse boxes. They like hallways because it doesn't move them much, or stairwells. They like natural stone fireplaces because of the minerals. They can energize off of those. And we were in that room, and I was standing on a little 2-step ladder to, of course, kind of, because I was like fanning the sage into the corners and up along the ceiling lines, and it would not go. It was like a 3-foot piece of quarter-round plexiglass was stuck in that ceiling crease between the wall and the ceiling, and it came out that far. And I'm saying like plexiglass because, of course, there was nothing that you could see there, but yet no matter how much I tried to fan that sage into that area, it would not go up into that area. I even held the plate up over my head trying to push it into it, and the smoke, it went flat and came almost down like one of those handlebar mustaches into my face.
You were watching this happen. You were seeing this come. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, it would not go in there, and then I had my friend Ellen try it. I said, "Well, you try it." I said, "Do you see this?" And she said, "Yeah." And then when she tried it, it did the same thing. It would not go into that section. And of course, the way that the tunneling ran, my family room was about 3/4 underground because it was, I guess, I mean, the way that those types of houses are built, the lower level. I mean, there was a good part of it that was underground. And so along that wall, the family room on the other side of the one wall was the 13 by 15 bonus room. And that whole path of whatever it was traveled that wall, but it tapered in at about halfway into the 13 by 15 foot room where it no longer was in the house, and it got thicker and more of it was into the house in the family room to the corner that exited to the outside. So when we went all along there with the sage to try to purify that area and get the rest of the negativity out, we were not able to get it to go into those creases. And again, it looked like a piece of quarter round, but a very large piece and by the time we got into the 13 by 15 foot room, as it tapered, it tapered smaller and smaller until it was gone. And it was just mind-boggling that no matter what we did, I mean, at one point it even put it out.
Yeah.
It just put it out. So it was like putting a hat on it or something. And she was there with me, and she witnessed the whole thing. So, and neither one of us were able to get it to go up in there.
My Lord, what a story! I mean, what
amazing.
What a time to live through. I would imagine that you were in no hurry to buy a new home, so you went back to your old home, and it must have felt just wonderful when it was all done. That was no longer on your plate.
It was a relief. It was bittersweet because I really wanted that house. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to have a nice place to raise my family, and it just was so unbelievable. When I first won the bid, and I found out that I had beat out this other person that was, also putting in an offer for the house, I just started praising God in my living room and dancing around and saying, thank you, dear Lord. This is my reward for all of the hardship that I've been through with life at that point, with going through a bad divorce and trying, deadbeat dad situation, trying to raise my two little kids. And I was so thankful. I thought that it was my reward. And then I found out that it was the booby prize. And it was, I would never, ever, ever wish anything like that on anybody, but I'm aware that it does exist. I'm aware that there is not a lot of help out there. And a lot of people that are even listening on the radio that are probably, shaking their head and rolling their eyes of saying, oh, well, that couldn't happen. Let me tell you what, I didn't believe it either. And you don't have to believe me. I'm just telling you what happened. But people that have actually experienced this kind of thing know about it. And they know what I'm talking about, and they can completely relate to what I'm saying. And there are a lot more of us out there than people are even willing to admit. There are a lot more of us out there than are even willing to talk about it amongst selves. And hopefully, by me coming forward, I'm hoping that other people will come forward. People need to have an awareness because the negativity of some of these things on this earth can affect things in an adverse way that people don't even realize. There have been, my next book is actually on the act of dying, death, and afterlife, but it also talks about mental illness. It talks about addiction. It has sections in there about how demonic presences and attachments create some of those situations. And also the book is unique too because if you are the person that has signed on the dotted line and find out after the fact that you've got a problem in your house, I've actually put a self-help section in the very last chapter for two reasons. For one, to give people a very simple way to find out on their own whether there's a problem in the house or not before they sign on the dotted line. Because if you can't get them out, you don't have any other choice. You either have to live with it or move. So
the options are pretty limited.
Yep.
Exactly. And people don't always have, I was fortunate that I had some place to go back to. But most people, they close, they move in. That's it. They're done. There's no place else to go. But the thing is, too, is if you are stuck in that sort of a situation, there is a certain protocol, for lack of a better word, on behavior that is very, very important that you mimic. And I say mimic because when you are scared out of your mind and there's a presence there, you do need to fake it because they can't read your mind, but they feed on any type of fear, negativity, anger, depression, anything like that. They feed on it, and those emotions are what help amp them up to be able to do things like bite marks, clawing, pulling your hair, moving things, throwing things, shaking your bed, pulling your covers off. You have to stay in a state of neutrality and not let them know that your emotions are going crazy inside. Again, they cannot read your mind. They don't know. So, and then you can have the option of humming a hymn, saying the Lord's Prayer out loud, turning on some church music, whatever it is.
Whatever it takes to break that negativity is what you're saying.
Exactly.
That negative energy.
Right, exactly. Because if you are staying in a neutral state as much as you can, even if you're peeing your pants, they don't know that unless you point it out. They are not able to. Their energy does not. I'm thinking of exacerbate, but that's not the correct word. They're not able to energize to act on you, or if your reaction causes inaction. And it's very important. So it talks about in the chapter what is the appropriate behavior, what they can and cannot do, how to determine whether you have an infestation or not. Mm-hmm. And I also touch on the subject about children, which to me is very, very important because in my experience, children between birth and age 5 have no filters. People, when they're getting ready to pass on the other end, those filters also efface, which is in my next book. Mm-hmm. But so they can see interdimensionally. And a lot of times the children are more aware of it before the parents are.
Yeah.
And the children might even make mention, oh, there's this man in my room. But the thing is there's a difference between crazy and something really going on. And it's up to the parents to determine that. And a lot of times, like myself, when I was a little girl, I saw things interdimensionally. I mean, my house had things in it when I was growing up, and my parents would always tell me, "Oh, well, there's nothing there," because they couldn't see it, but I could clearly see it. And when I would mention it, I would sometimes even get in trouble because back in the late 60s, early 70s, nobody wanted it to get out in the neighborhood. Everybody wanted to be like the Joneses, the proverbial Joneses.
Yeah, they didn't talk about those kinds of things.
Right. Don't go trick-or-treating at that house. They got one of those kids living there. They didn't want that. So,
unfortunately, Lynn, we are running out of time. We actually went a half hour over just for you.
I'm so sorry. Okay.
No worries. That's us. We're so captivated by it. And, I kind of own the radio station, so we can go as long as we want to go, so that's okay.
Okay.
Great stuff, Lynn. Thanks a ton. And Mike, did you have any questions before Lynn goes?
I had like 7 questions, but that's okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, you have nothing to apologize for.
No, absolutely not.
It was a great. It was great having you on, and the book is Omnipresent by Lynn Monet. Check it out. It's over there on Amazon. Buy it. Read it. It's every bit as good, actually a little bit way better than she's given. She's not giving herself enough credit. And for you to survive what you've survived, it truly speaks to your intestinal fortitude and your ability to keep things together and not let yourself go crazy, because a lot of us would in that situation. So until next time, guys, take care of each other and love each other. And Lynn, thanks again so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Lynn.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. After Hours AM is a production of Midwest Radio Productions. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And please visit www.americas-most-haunted.com.